A mana
19
base.
lands, 19 lands, 4 Aether Vials, and that would be 37 slivers.
It's a really nice mana base, too. 4 Mutavault, that's a sliver, great.
4 Sliver Hive.
Obviously.
Harkening back to yesterday. Everything's 5 mana. Everything's 5 color, isn't it?
Yep, 4 mana Confluence, great. 4 copies of Ancient Ziggurat, great. 4 Cavern of Souls. That's a really nice mana base.
All right, we are in the sideboard here. So Jason Holwick has some board cards in play, bringing you up to speed with what's going on here. We have Aegis of the Gods in play, and he is attacking with both a Mana Weft and Diffusion Sliver. And he has Crystalline Sliver in place, a slight upgrade to Diffusion Sliver, but to be honest, he's playing both.
Yeah, of course.
So creatures have Shroud, and then when you do target them, your spell's countered unless you pay 2.
Now, to me, Diffusion Sliver and Crystalline Sliver, those are the big incentives to play a deck like this. Once you get your critical mass in play, you can do some pretty powerful stuff, but you're at risk of getting picked apart by spot removal. So having a lot of Shroud effects, really nice for this kind of deck.
Well, we saw yesterday a Slivers deck in Standard on camera get completely blown out by Drown in Sorrow. And I think one of the advantages is, like, in Legacy, people just, like, sweeper effects are so much more rare. I mean, to be fair, if Tenjum right now had made that 3rd land and been like, Drown in Sorrow, like, it would have been equally as big as a blowout as it was in Standard yesterday.
Correct.
But people just don't play it. Well, that said, he may play, they do have some effects, like Toxic Deluge is in Tenjum's sideboard. I have to assume that's in this matchup, and the Slivers also can't beat it.
Is there anything in the sideboard that gives him a little bit of play?
He has 4 Force of Wills.
Okay.
He has a Telekinetic Sliver, which gives all your slivers the opposition ability. So if he gets that in play, he could just tap Tenjum out for the rest of the game.
You could lock him out, sure.
Yeah. Right now, a lot of his cards, his creatures are all Shroud, Birds of Paradise right now. The Diffusion Sliver's ability isn't coming up. Crystalline Sliver's kind of just an upgrade on it. It's also bigger.
Though, unfortunately, the card you alluded to before, Toxic Deluge, making an appearance.
Well, I don't see what Holwick does about that card.
You gotta take your beats.
Right, and this is, sadly, you know, we kind of saw this happen yesterday too. He's going to Thoughtseize again. So we see Gale Rider Sliver and Predatory Sliver. This feels very close to the deck we saw in Standard yesterday, just with really great mana.
Yeah. Because he had to deluge the Aegis how to play first before being able to Thoughtseize.
You know, he still is playing Striking Sliver, the first Strike Sliver. He does not have... The combo yesterday we saw against creature decks was Toxic Sliver with Striking Sliver, so First Strike and Death Touch. It does not look like Holwick has the Death Touch Sliver, no Toxic Sliver. But so the abilities his Slivers can give are, he has 8+1/+1s. He has Shroud, he has First Strike, Flying, Leeching Sliver, which is when they attack, they deal 1. Predatory, so he has all 12 of the +1/+1s.
That's a must.
That's a must. Diffusion, which is kind of like your less good Shroud. Harmonic, which is they disenchant when they come into play. 2 Mana Weft, which is Birds of Paradise. Sliver Overlord, which is the 7/7 for 5 that steals slivers and finds them out of your deck, right? I think that's that one. That's one from Scourge. And then Sliver Legion, which is slivers get 1/1 for each other sliver. It's the giant pumped sliver.
Super Sliver.
Yeah. There are right now 4 Wooburg slivers, 4 of the meta slivers.
Yeah.
They have a Overlord, a Queen, a Legion, and a Hive Lord. Ancient Ziggurat, you see there, kind of, it's fun the lands that are piecing this together between Ziggurat, Sliver Hive, and Cavern of Souls. He actually has 12 lands that just make any color to cast slivers.
Yeah, that was one of the non-synergies of the deck kind of manifested last turn there when Ancient Ziggurat could not animate a Mutavault. But that's really the only thing he's got going on there. I guess Aether Vial he can't cast, but probably has some other land.
All right, back in the game, we do have Striking Sliver and Mutavault, so it's 3 power worth of First Strike. There is something where, like, he has making inroads into Tenjum's life total. Now just 1 at a time with Striking Sliver as Wasteland takes care of the Mutavault. But sometimes I feel like when you're watching Legacy, just some good old honest attacking can be pretty hard for decks to deal with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to play some creatures at 1 and 2 and hit you.
Now, the problem here is this Ancestral's coming off, and...
That is 3 more cards.
Tenjum's deck is prepared. I mean, he's got a fair amount of creature removal and blockers and so forth. So he's more equipped to fight this kind of strategy than most decks in the room.
Yeah, it's interesting because without the Toxic Deluge, I'm not sure how well he actually is equipped to fight it, but the deluge is just almost, it seems unbeatable for the slivers.
Well, Crystalline Sliver is a specific problem for a deck like Shardless Bug.
Now, to be fair, Diffusion Sliver would almost be just as big of a problem, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of the same thing.
Like in Legacy, paying 2 more mana for every spell is almost Shroud. Like how many lands do people ever get in Legacy?
Right.
4? You know, Shardless Bug, by being a control deck that actively wants 4, which is like fine. So Shardless Bug's fine having 4 lands in play, right? And that's pretty greedy for a Legacy deck. Most of them aren't really in the market for a 4th or 5th land.
Especially so many of them are trying to, you know, brainstorm away redundant lands and fetch them away and so forth. It's a pretty big cost.
All right, so we see here, it's going to be Shardless Agent. And here comes the card advantage train for Tenjum. He's going to cascade into 3 more cards for this Ancestral Visions. Yeah, there's not too much reach of the Slivers deck. Seems like once you deal with the board, they're more or less done.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, his deck is 37 creatures. So there's not going to be any tricks coming out here.
Well, Gale Rider Sliver is still potentially a challenge here, if that comes off.
Right, it has to come off, and it has to come off in conjunction with Crystalline, because I have to imagine Tenjum has a way just to spot remove things. Predatory Sliver.
That's an excellent draw here. I think, you know, it's 2
yeah.
more damage, and now the first strike Sliver also gets to attack. So
The Mutavolt's for 3, the Striking Sliver's for 2. This could be 5 damage at Tenjum. He can't crack the fetch land then.
I mean, that was a huge draw this turn. It frees up, it deals more damage and frees up another attacker.
I would think that Tenjum's chumping the Mutable. Like, at this point, he has so many cards and so many weapons. My guess is that as long as he can stay alive, he's fine. There is something that Shardless Bug does not have life gain in the deck, outside of Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
That is my one foray into playing a fair deck in Legacy is I played 1 event with Shardless Bug, and I remember noticing that I did not have life gain at one point, and finding it to be like actually a concern.
Yeah, you've come so close to stabilizing the game, and you can't quite fend off the last few points.
Right. Yeah, you're just like, man, I hope they don't burn me. You get this Ancestral Visions, it resolves, you draw, like you get to this point where you've drawn, what, 6 bonus cards, and you're like, oh, well, I'm used to saying drawing 6 is winning, and then sometimes I wouldn't win, and I would be sad.
Drawing 6 extra cards, still might lose to this guy's draft deck.
Right.
Ah, that's
Toxic Deluge
another
again.
one.
But he has to pay life for that. He had to pay 2 life for it.
Yeah, he has 2 copies in his deck.
So that's going to put him down to 2. You know, if Holwick played Cautery Sliver, he could get him right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gale Rider is still good to go.
Down to 1, right? Is that the one, Cautery? Is that the red-white one that, like, they all become Goblin Legionnaires?
Yeah, that's something like that.
Okay, yeah, just play a Sliver, be like, oh, blow it up, hit you.
That's the thing. Every time you lose with Slivers, you can go back and say, well, maybe I should be playing different Slivers because there's so many.
There's so many Slivers.
Come on, Gale Rider.
Get that one flying in there.
Final point.
He would just play it and hit him with Mutavault. It'd be done. Another Mutavault. That's not bad.
Not shabby. Can't be killed by Liliana. Forces Tenjum to leave some mana up. You can't Abrupt Decay it.
Right, and so what is the instant speed removal that Shardless Bug actually has? Let's go back to that here.
It's just Abrupt Decay here. In the sideboard, there is some Golgari Charms, which maybe he brought in, maybe he didn't. He's got 2 Needles. Maybe he brought in, maybe he didn't.
So that means that Tenjum, not only will have to leave back Tarmogoyf, but right now he'll have to leave back a Creeping Tar Pit.
Yes.
All right, so the second Mutavault ties up a lot of Tenjum's mana.
And if Jason is familiar with the Shardless Bug list, he may just say, I don't think you have anything. Most of your removal is Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, well, right now, so I mean, if Tenjum did tap his mana and tap out, like, not leave up the Tar Pit?
Yeah, as long as he has the Tar Pit back in the Tarmogoyf, of course Jason can't attack, but...
All right, so we'll see what he can do here.
But this is tough. I mean, Tenjum has to leave a lot of resources back.
Yeah. Oh, just this feeling. You drew 6. You cast Ancestral Recall twice, and now you might not win. What is this? Life management is so hard.
I don't believe he did, but I'm not sure.
All right, and we'll see where we are here. Yeah, and it was forgotten, actually. And this happens a lot of times when you play with Ancestral Visions. You draw 3 off the Visions, then forget to draw your card for the turn. And that did happen with Tenjum's turn, so he's awarded. You can't forget your draw step. That's not a trigger you can forget, so he does get that. And he has, well, maybe the solution will be more cards, and suspends the 3rd Ancestral Visions. He passes, and it's going to be Relic of Progenitus cast for Jason Holwick.
Not shabby.
Sure. Remember, he actually can't. So we should make note here that Holwick cannot activate both his Mutavaults right now. 2 of his lands are Ancient Ziggurats.
Yeah.
So,
But I think he's happy just to shrink down this Goyf.
Oh, I mean, he wants to make this play, but I mean, this is still good for him. But just pointing out that that double Mutavault swing we were talking about does not actually exist at the moment.
I don't think Jason's really interested in doing that this turn anyway, because he's you know, still conscious of that Creeping Tar Pit.
Yeah, plays another Relic of Progenitus. Well, what this allows him to do is he can, at one point, so say he gets to nuke the graveyards and keep Tarmogoyf at a 0/1, then the following turn he can attack. If he gets the mana, he can attack with 2 Mutavaults. Tenjum will have to block with Tar Pit and an 0/1 Tarmogoyf, and then suddenly it would be Holwick's 1 remaining Mutavaults to Tenjum's nothing.
In an ideal world. Assuming Tenjum has nothing.
Yeah, there's still this problem that, like, actually Holwick is, you can more or less think of him as being on 3 lands.
Yeah.
2 Mutavaults and 1 Sliver Hive. Actually, there's a little, you know, there is some urgency on Tenjum's side. With 3 more lands, yeah, that's a little ways out. Sliver Hive could kill Tenjum. I mean, he's at 1, and this thing makes 1/1s.
It feels like we're a ways away from that possibility. But yeah, it is something to keep in mind.
I guess he would need 6 mana because he'd have to activate a Mutavault so that he could activate Sliver Hive. Sliver Hive has this clause where you need to have a sliver before you can make slivers. And another Tarmogoyf joins the battle for Tenjum. And the draw there for Holwick was Crystalline Sliver. That one seems just fine right now. He can cast Crystalline. And if you look at the graveyards, this, I don't know, there's just instant in the graveyard right now. So there's artifact and instant. So okay, the Tarmogoyfs are once again big enough to tango with a Mutavault. But it is a 3rd creature for Holwick, so.
Yeah, and if I'm Jason, you still can't make an attack here.
No, you just wait.
Got to wait another turn or 2. Andrew does have to move, you know, he does have to try to win the game as fast as possible, as powerful as his cards are here, because he knows Gale Rider Sliver is a threat in Jason's deck.
Yep, he does have the answer for Crystalline. Liliana of the Veil will be minused. That takes care of Crystalline Sliver. Holwick can either get rid of the Crystalline Sliver, and he's debating getting rid of a Mutavault right now instead.
I kind of like getting rid of one of the 2 Mutavaults here because you can't even animate both of them right now, and Crystalline Sliver cuts off a lot of cards that Tenjum has access to. You know, Abrupt Decay doesn't do anything. If you draw future slivers.
Yeah, I think I agree. He's going to get rid of Crystalline. I mean, there is some value to keeping these lands here. And you also in a situation where Tenjum still can't really attack you. So let me pose this one to you. If you think the game's going to be drawn out, Liliana, this isn't the only time Liliana is going to edict you.
Yeah, sure.
So there's, you know, you'd be like, well, okay, I'm going to have to, you know, if I sack the Mutavault, then he's going to get the Crystal. Maybe he has another Liliana in hand. But now Tenjum has some life gain, and this could pose a problem. Deathrite Shaman was his play. And yeah, that gaining 2 ability seems to be the most relevant. There is only 1 creature in the graveyard right now, thanks to that Relic of Progenitus. So a top-decked Gale Rider Sliver and an additional land will still get the win for Holwick at the moment.
He's got a little, Holwick still has a lot of time to work with here. I mean, you know, the Ancestral coming off is bad, and he needs to move a little bit faster than that, but.
I mean, there's the thing, I think if Tenjum is being real sharp here, he may start discarding his own creature. Like if he can, he may discard a creature to his own Liliana so that he can eat it if he wants to get more. Like getting above 3 seems pretty relevant right now.
Once Tenjum goes to 5, it's hard for Jason to catch back up because at this point it feels like Jason's kill is Gale Rider Sliver and kill in 1 shot.
Right. He pluses Liliana, discards his own Thoughtseize. And that ups the Goyce to 4s. And he could actually swing the Tarmogoyfs here. He is safe. This is safe. And I think this is, I was gonna say, I like this move by Tenjum. The swing puts Holwick down to 9 and then does threaten just a kill next turn.
Yep.
And 1 on the Aether Vial. And let's see, can he get it? I don't think it's Gale Rider.
Still could be potentially. It may be better to vial in the Gale Rider next turn rather than attack for short of lethal this turn and lose your Gale Rider to a Liliana activation.
Well, the problem is that if you don't, you're dead though. Because Tenjum, instead of gaining life, will end step drain you for 2 and then hit you with Tarmogoyfs.
Well, you still have a Mutavault as a chump blocker. You don't necessarily die next turn.
But you don't, do you win next turn? Then you don't win next turn either. Because
we're looking at running draws at that point. You need something like one of your +1/+1 slivers.
Because you'd be chumping and then you'd edict away your Gale Rider. Oh, you do Gale Rider on end step, okay. There's a lot of things that have to go Holwick's way right now.
Yes. It seems like he may be able to sneak this one out, if this is Gale Rider. But I do not think that he can just cast a creature right now. I think that plays too easily into the Liliana in play.
And this may be the end of the road here. Remember, these players with 1 loss, so this is, we are in that elimination part where second loss does take it down. And we'll see Tenjum goes for the aggressive play. He's going to drain Holwick down to 7, getting rid of his own Thoughtseize. But that does shrink the Tarmogoyfs down to 3/4s. So he I think I like the heads up play. He chose to get rid of the sorcery because he knew Ancestral Visions would be replacing it.
Yep.
Therefore, he didn't shrink his Tarmogoyfs. If he'd chosen Abrupt Decay, that would have happened. Liliana probably can keep pace anyway. Pluses Liliana. Now land is in the yard. The Tarmogoyfs are 5s. And Tenjum is going to activate 3 attackers. And now that the Goyfs are 5, that should be lethal. And it is. So 2-0, Andrew Tenjum and Shardless Bug still alive heading into round 5.
Had him on the ropes there, game 2 at least, but just too many cards. And those Ancient Ziggurats not being able to activate the Mutavaults came up several times there. That was a big deal.
So, I mean, the question is, would you rather play Ancient Ziggurat or some City of Brasses in that spot? Ancient Ziggurat's one of those cards that, to me, has always been really powerful, but I do see stuff like that happen more often than I would like it to when I see the card in play.
It's interesting, right? Because, you know, the deck has 4 Aether Vials and all creatures, so Ancient Ziggurat looks like a freebie. But
Sliver Hive is
it came up, Sliver Hive didn't quite come up in that game, but it was close to coming up in that game. And the Mutavault thing definitely came up.
Well, it's more like, so like, okay, think about the Sliver Hive aspect. There are 19 lands in his deck, and 4 of them don't work with Sliver Hive. So if you have a Sliver Hive in play, you have 14 other lands in your deck, and you have to have 5 of them to activate it, or you have to have one of your 2 mana weft slivers. Like, I just don't really ever see Sliver Hive getting activated.
No, I don't think. I think it's just the best 5-color land the deck has access to. But
I mean, that's certainly true.
The Ziggurat there, maybe that's just one random game out of 1,000 where it looks like that. But you know, there's that cost was being paid big time in that match.